And then I joined the military because I wanted to go to college with my friends. It wasn't like a patriotic thing. It was actually in July of 2001. 2 months later, September 11th happened. You develop these beliefs. If I make a mistake, somebody dies. And so sometimes even if I'm doing well mentally, I can go into a couple week period where I'm having episode after episode, and it's very challenging on the mental health. And I have times where I have suicidal ideations and didn't want to live anymore. And because I remember I cussed out my first counselor because I had just gotten back from disarming or doing the bomb squad stuff in Iraq. And the first questions he's asking me are about my childhood. I had this imposter syndrome of like, how am I going to be writing a book about calming the chaos within when my whole world's chaotic? I've catch myself being depressed in paradise, and then it makes it worse because I beat myself up like, oh my God, you're living the dream and you can't even enjoy it.
Sometimes we just gotta like go through and say, you know what? I'm going to allow myself to be sad and to go through these emotions.
100%. You have to be able to sit with the emotions. Your brain loves to be right, and it's going to filter your reality based on your beliefs. So who am I to be talking on podcasts when I'm sitting here considering not being alive right now? So working through that stuff and giving myself grace and reframing those things, those moments don't define me. But little me still subconsciously believes that maybe it's because I'm not lovable. That's why my dad can go be with a different family, but he can't be with me. Happiness is not a destination. I've tried to do that many times. Like when I get this job, I've had a 6-figure job. I've gotten awards. I moved to Costa Rica. It doesn't fix anything. I still can have depression in Costa Rica. I still can have depression with millions of dollars. I'd say your subconscious is responsible for about 90 to 95% of the things that you do, the decisions that you make. And only 5% is in your conscious mind. And a lot of times we never go back and look at our subconscious and look at some of the things from our past, like the inner child work. And we just kind of stuff that down.
Welcome to Rosabel Unscripted, the podcast where authenticity meets real life stories. I'm your host, Rosabel Unscripted, and in each episode, I dive into unscripted conversations about personal growth, life challenges, and the experiences that shaped us. From heart-to-heart chats with inspiring guests to raw moments of self-discovery, I am here to share stories that connect us all. Whether you're seeking motivation, healing, or simply a dose of real talk, you are in the right place. So get comfortable, tune in, and join me on this journey of transformation, empowerment, and meaningful conversations. This is Rosabel Unscripted.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Rosabel Unscripted podcast, the show where we dive deep into stories of courage, resiliency, and purpose. Today, I am honored to sit down with a guest whose journey embodies all those qualities, Cole Grace. Cole is a combat veteran. He's an author, speaker. He's based currently in Tronadora, Costa Rica. Hi, Cole. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm excited to be on and to talk about this stuff and the mental health stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy. Awesome. So in 2005, you served a roadside bomb disposal team in Ramadi, Iraq, right? And later, you faced life-altering challenges with PTSD, chronic illness, and even addiction. Cole, why don't I let you tell us your story?
All right. Well, it's, I got a lot of avenues and turns in it, but it started out in childhood. I was born in Houston, Texas. My family's from Michigan. My dad was doing hurricane work in Texas, and I was born out there. He's no longer an alcoholic or addict, but when I was young, he was an alcoholic and addict. So for the first 4 years of my life, before they got divorced, I lived in Texas for 6 months. And when they moved back, they were together until I was 4, and they were divorced. And I have a sister that's a year and a half younger than me. And after the divorce for another 4 years, my mom was a single mom, moving around a lot in different places. And then met my stepdad, who was a police officer. He was a little strict, and they argued throughout their relationship quite a bit through the times that I was 8 to 18. And then I joined the military because I wanted to go to college with my friends. It wasn't like a patriotic thing. It was actually in July of 2001. 2 months later, September 11th happened. I did have the option to kind of not go through boot camp, and it wouldn't have been like AWOL, or I wouldn't have gotten in trouble. But I still went to boot camp. In 2005, I was deployed to Iraq as part of the route clearance team, which did the explosive disposal or explosive ordnance disposal. We also did convoy security. In doing that, there was a lot of hypervigilance and perfectionism. Like you develop these beliefs. If I make a mistake, somebody dies. So I became really hard on myself. It served its purpose at the time, but then when I came back home, it wasn't useful anymore to be that intense. So things like that carried over. Hypervigilance, perfectionism, being really intense, anger. I switched a lot of my emotions to anger. In working with the bomb disposal, I worked with radiation and developed like stomach issues that still continue to this day. And so sometimes even if I'm doing well mentally, I can go into a couple week period where I'm having episode after episode, and it's very challenging on the mental health. And I have times where I have suicidal ideations and didn't want to live anymore. And because of the condition, I'd have to use painkillers when I would get sick. And the opioid crisis created a situation where I would go to the emergency room and they would no longer take care of the issue. And so I ended up going to the streets and finding pain medicine there, but then I would take it when I didn't need it and became physically addicted to it while I was like working for the government in a high-paying, high-functioning job, making a good amount of money. So I would justify, well, you're paying the bills, you're going to work and da-da-da. So then from there, I did do 9 days in a rehab facility, which is where I was given a book and I was able to understand more the connection between childhood stuff and the way that I behave at this time. Before, I didn't give that any credence. Before, I was just kind of like, I remember I cussed out my first counselor because I had just gotten back from disarming or doing the bomb squad stuff in Iraq. And the first questions he's asking me are about my childhood. And I was like, that's not the problem. The problem is the stuff that I did in Iraq. And so for a long time, I didn't acknowledge the childhood trauma. But that was a big part because it was core beliefs when I was young, and there were like fundamental things that happened. And even though they weren't as intense in the moment, their impact was sometimes more impactful than some of the major traumas that I had experienced. So that was very interesting. And that started my journey on researching neuroscience and like self-help books and everything I could about trying to better my quality of life and to change my mindset. And in doing that, I started writing a book. I went through the pandemic, got married, and then moved to Costa Rica in 2022. And my relationship wasn't going very well. And I had this imposter syndrome of like, how am I going to be writing a book about calming the chaos within when my whole world's chaotic? I wasn't doing the things that I wrote about in the book, and I had kind of fallen off from it. So I shelved the book for 7 years. And after I got divorced, I started reading back through the book and actually doing some of the things that I had written about, like writing a mission statement, positive affirmations, and gratitude practice, repentance and forgiveness, and some things like that that I outlined in the book. And I started to feel a little better. And in doing so, I decided to finish the book. And it only took me like 3 months to finish it and publish it. So I had written almost all of it. I just was self-sabotaging and not doing it because I felt less than. And so in working some of the steps in the book, I was able to work on my self-confidence, self-love, and having a more positive mindset. And that has helped me to get to where I am now, where I'm speaking on podcasts and more authentic and talking about things that I was uncomfortable talking about before, and being honest and vulnerable instead of just showing like the highlight reel that I used to show on social media.
Wow. It's healing, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And a lot of the things that I thought other people were going to say or react was a projection of my own insecurities, and nobody really reacted that way. I got pretty positive feedback. And so that was
Absolutely.
a big learning experience for sure.
And what is the name of your book again?
The name of it's Internal is Greater Than External, Calming the Chaos Within.
Okay. And when did you publish it?
I published it March of 2025 this
Okay.
year.
Very good. Have you had any feedback on it?
Yeah, I've had decent sales, and beyond family members, I've had some really good reviews of the book. And then I've had people reach out that have posted a lot of the podcasts that I've been on and things. And again, having negative kind of self-talk and a negative beating myself up, like, are you just being annoying by posting this all the time? And is anybody even really, benefiting from this, or is it just whatever? And then I got a message from a friend that was in the military with me and never liked a post or comments on a post or anything, but he's, what you're doing is inspiring, and I'm going to get help now at the VA next week.
Wow.
So something like that just makes it, so powerful that I don't care how many likes or how many views or whatever. I'm just going to keep doing it because it's what I'm passionate about.
Well, it's amazing. It's a lot of things that struck me about your story. Listening to you, we have quite some things in common. That was also my parents were divorced when I was 4. My dad was an alcoholic, and I live in Texas.
Definitely.
So, yeah, and my husband is military, Army, 20 years, veteran. So a little bit familiar with, and I have many, many friends that are veterans, Army particularly. And a little bit about me, I'm a nurse practitioner who works in neurology. See a lot of, and why do I say all of these things? Because the message that you're bringing here, how important it is to normalize, let's put it that way, to be more human every day. Because a lot of times what happened to us is we all go through traumas, we all go through difficult times in life. But we sometimes, like you said, the self-sabotage or the imposter syndrome tell us, oh, well, nobody's going to care, or other people are going through something. So we kind of dismiss our own. And then we tend to especially in a society like this. I was born in Colombia, South America, so it's a little bit more different. And you're probably discovering that in Costa Rica, it's also a different culture, than here in the US, where we're supposed to fake it until we make it kind of thing and look a certain way.
Yeah, there's a lot more happiness here and just authenticity and simplicity. And
Absolutely.
It's very refreshing.
And that is one of the reasons why I do the podcast, because this is the space that allows me to be myself, to talk about things that I think makes us human, as opposed to go, from work back and forth and be like, when people see you here in the street, how you doing? Oh, good. Everything's good. But in reality, it's not, or we're going through things and it's nice. So I bet when you were in Costa Rica and somebody asks you how you doing, they probably want to hear how you're truly doing.
They do. But I've also learned, and this is a weird thing that happened. I'm in paradise, right? So everybody wants to hear all the good things about Costa Rica. I've catch myself being depressed in paradise, and then it makes it worse because I beat myself up like, oh my God, you're living the dream and you can't even enjoy it. And so I have to be very careful and give grace that life is life. No matter where you are, no matter where you go, there you are. And you still have to deal with things. So I don't necessarily dump on people, but I do tell them the cool highlights.
Yeah. And I think there is a song that says that it rains even in paradise. Something like that.
Yep, it does. And I got to remind myself that and let myself, whatever. I have times where I'm going to be depressed, and especially from sick here.
It's about allowing yourself to be human and accept yourself where you are. I mean, we all have our, sometimes we just got to go through and say, you know what? I'm going to allow myself to be sad and to go through these emotions.
100%. You have to be able to sit with the emotions. And that's part of the book. The internal is greater than the external, because the external is distractions. And a lot of times when we feel those feelings, we want to distract ourselves instead of just sitting with those feelings and letting ourselves
we want to ignore them because that's what society has told us, because but that's not the truth. It's actually healthy to acknowledge them and to feel them.
One thing I heard that changed my mindset about that was it's like your inner child is knocking on the door and asking for help, and you're saying, go away, you're annoying. Instead of figuring out what the problem is, it's kind of further rejecting that part of yourself that is looking for validation. I just made a video about authenticity this morning, along the lines of what you're talking about, and how some of our core beliefs, you got to be careful of your subconscious beliefs, because if you have a belief that you're not worthy or not lovable, then you're going to self-sabotage situations where you're set up for success. Your brain loves to be right, and it's going to filter your reality based on your beliefs. So if you believe you have bad luck, then your brain's going to show you all the examples of you having bad luck.
Yes.
When I started to monitor how I talk to myself and some of the things I say and think, I was like, whoa, That's not good. That's not helping me at all. And that's when you go down that spiral into the deep depression that can last for long periods of time, is because you keep feeding it. So I'm learning how to break that loop and how to do things that are positive to set me up for success. And, allowing myself to, there was another part where, because of my sickness thing, sometimes when I would feel good, I would beat myself up, like, because I felt unworthy of having disability. Like, you felt good for too many days in a row. And then when I feel bad, I beat myself up for being a burden and not being good enough. And because my mental health falls off. So who am I to be talking on podcasts when I'm sitting here considering not being alive right now, So working through that stuff and giving myself grace and reframing those things, that doesn't, those moments don't define me. Those moments are moments.
Absolutely. And you have said that you described a book. I think it was a book by Dr. Howard Shaverners.
Yes.
Something about unlearning your pain and depression. That's a pivotal moment. What was that about that book that made the pages jump at you?
I would say that the mind-body connection and how, in the core beliefs from 0 to 5 years old, how your brain isn't fully formed and it's making these conclusions that are going to be in your subconscious until you either reprogram them or they can keep popping up. And so it might not be the truth. And now my adult brain looks, and I know that the divorce wasn't my fault, that that's my dad's stuff and that's my mom's stuff. But little me still subconsciously believes that, maybe it's because I'm not lovable. That's why my dad can go be with a different family, but he can't be with me. It's illogical now as an adult, but it's something that I believed when I was young, and it still sticks in my subconscious. So going back and kind of reprogramming that I am lovable and retelling the story in a different way. Yeah, healing. Exactly.
Healing your inner child and being compassionate. I love talking about that inner child. My experience is that I visit my inner child once in a while. It's always sitting out there in a certain area because, again, I went through something similar where parents were, having the fights and all these things, and you find yourself so often I go out there and to calm the inner child, say, hey, everything is okay.
The first time I did it, I didn't know what to expect. And I was like, all right, I'll try this. And then I was bawling. I was crying like a baby at 5 minutes. And I was like, what is going on? But it's very powerful to go back and to, give the things that my inner child needed at that time. And I didn't understand. Your brain doesn't have to have it. It doesn't have to actually happen in reality.
Right.
It's like if you see somebody roll their ankle or do something in a sports injury on TV, you'll get goosebumps and you'll be like,
yes.
Well, you feel it. And it didn't really happen. It didn't happen to you, but you can feel it. So you can trick
the
your
brain doesn't distinguish between reality or fiction. It's just in that sense, I find it a very linear. And you're right. I mean, it's all documented.
Cool that you can go back and reprogram something that didn't really happen, but you can, if you do it enough and you get enough practice in it, you can make your brain will think that it actually happened that way.
Absolutely. Love, imagination is so powerful. I found it's my own very own practice. Many times I just close my eyes. I can feel the sand in my toes, the beat waves, and you actually can mimic where your body it feels like you're there.
Yeah. There's stories of people being in jail for long periods of time or incarcerated, and they say they're freer than they've ever felt because they can leave their, in meditation and stuff. I think Nelson Mandela talked about that, but being able to be in control. And if you can find your happy place like that and do the imagination thing, your brain will get the dopamine, it'll release the chemicals, and you didn't even have to leave your house,
That is so, so true. And talking about that, I have a hunch here, but because my idea of happiness, people think, oh, one day when I do this, I'll be happy, or this or that. They think of happiness sometimes in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, happiness is not a place. It's little moments, moments of joy, right? That you can actually create yourself in many ways.
Definitely. Happiness is not a destination. I've tried to do that many times. Like when I get this job, I've had a 6-figure job. I've gotten awards. I moved to Costa Rica. It doesn't fix anything. I still can have depression in Costa Rica. I still can have depression
Absolutely.
with millions of dollars. You can
Right.
still be depressed no matter what your external circumstances are. Conversely, if you're internally content, you can have bad external circumstances
Yes.
and still be okay. And so that's the flip, is that I'm trying
Yeah.
to be okay internally and grounded, and then I can better enjoy my external world. And,
Through writing about my life story in a book that I published early this year, it's called...
Mom, we do have a lot in common.
Yes, I wrote this book. It's called The Courage to Succeed, Extra-American Dream.
Awesome.
And through writing it, it's only 100 pages, but through writing, I came out with my own definition of success is being comfortable with who you are, whatever you are.
Yes.
That, to me, that's success.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Goes back to what you're saying.
Mhm.
You are internally, you're happy, you're at peace. To me, that's success. Because again, it doesn't matter how much money you have or not have in the bank.
Mhm.
It's about feeling at peace with your own self at the moment that you find yourself. So,
definitely. And yeah, working on that stuff it's come down to like self-love and
yes.
Confidence. And I didn't realize, people talk about humility and things like that. Humility is not the lack of confidence. And
Absolutely.
that's something that's, hard to understand. And having confidence and self-confidence and self-love, you don't need external validation. Do things in order
Exactly.
to get stuff from other people. You just do it because you're giving instead of trying to get. And it's an abundance mentality instead of a scarcity mentality.
Yeah. And also learning self-forgiveness. We have to forgive ourselves a lot of times for those mistakes that we make, for the things that we do, make our peace with ourselves, with others, and keep on going. Because sometimes that's just, like you mentioned, it's like noise, that if you let it wrapped all over you, it will keep you down. But we were made to thrive.
Yeah.
And thriving, it doesn't mean that we're not, like you say, we're not going to have the valleys and the lows. It means we're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on moving.
Yeah, we're going to move through the
Despite-
storm.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot with, the beliefs part of it and the authenticity part and that self-love and with your energy, the way that you approach the world. So if you approach the world with the attitude of, I love myself and I'm a good person, people are going to treat you that way. Now, if you approach people with the preconception that people aren't going to like me, you're going to treat them as if they already don't like you. And then guess what? They're not going to like you. And it's, you're putting off this energy, and these beliefs are so important. So
that is very true. I believe that very much. We have to love ourselves first, because how can we ask others to love us when we don't do it ourselves? That right there, it's to me, it's basic. Same thing, like we ask for others to care about what we say. It starts with us. We need to care for what we say first. We need to value our contributions, no matter how big, how small, And then, like you said, whatever energy we put into the world, that's what we receive in exchange.
There's a quote from somebody, I don't know who it was from, but he says, I could never love somebody who could love somebody like me. And so that's when you have this feeling like you don't love yourself. So when somebody else tries to love you, it's incongruent with your own belief of yourself. And you're like, you're crazy, get away from me.
It also, we go through situations, I've gone through those myself, where unfortunately we meet people from all different walks of life. And sometimes we have to make the hard decisions to walk away from people that don't serve our purpose, our values. They don't align with us. Sometimes we are good-hearted people. Like I find myself in that, where we want to think the best out of everybody. But as we grow and learn, some of those behaviors that other people or those negative energies don't serve us, and we need to walk away.
Yeah,
Toxic relationships.
I believe that comes with that self-confidence, and that allows you to set boundaries and stick by them. Because if I'm comfortable with myself, I love myself, and then I can have the boundary, and I'm not afraid to lose somebody if they don't align with my boundaries. That's better for me. And then before, I'd be afraid to lose that relationship, even if it was toxic, because like a scarcity mentality. So I'm letting people treat me in bad ways just so that I can have that validation that I get or whatever from that.
Right. And even I personally consider myself, I have a certain degree of self-love or self-esteem, but even to us, when we consider healthy in certain levels, those things happen to us. We still, there's people that come to you and treat you like, and sometimes we allow them. It has happened to me. But it's not that it won't, just because, like you said, having let's say you're somebody who has great self-esteem, self-confidence, people like that will still come to your life. And it will be like an exercise where you have to over and over again, be like, hey, this is the line.
Yourself.
Exactly. And if you have somebody who crossed that line, and then you be like, okay, you got to remove yourself. Either you remove yourself or remove them, but that's it.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but it's way
It's not
better.
easy, yeah.
It feels better once you get to practicing it and saying no. Oh, that was scary at first, but
Yes.
now it's like, I was a people pleaser and an extra nice person because I wasn't confident in myself. I was looking for the validation in other people by being that way. And so now I can say no, and it's like, that didn't hurt. It didn't do nothing like I thought it was going to.
Yeah. But life is it's like a big universe. It amazes me, all the time of how
the power of thoughts and beliefs blows my mind. That shapes your reality, and how you interpret things based on your beliefs is really how your reality is. And you can change it by changing your thoughts. It's wild.
Wow. I like how I can see how you not only talk by experience, but also by studies. You have read neuroscience, you've done trauma research, even the Bible, I believe, just by hearing you talk, and self-help. But if you could sum up your philosophy, what's the one message that you want listeners to carry with them today?
I'd say your subconscious is responsible for about 90 to 95% of the things that you do, the decisions that you make. And only 5% is in your conscious mind. And a lot of times we never go back and look at our subconscious and look at some of the things from our past, like the inner child work, and we just kind of stuff that down. So it's very important to have awareness of subconscious things, of beliefs, of negative self-talk and things of that nature, and to deal with them by repentance, forgiveness, by doing a positive affirmation in a place where you have an insecurity. And by doing gratitude every day, so that your brain, your reticular activating system, is looking for positive things. So your subconscious is very important, and a lot of times it's left unaddressed. So don't be afraid to take the time, to use your imagination. Think about, why do I feel this way? Why do I get so upset in this triggered moment? It's not good that somebody's said that to me, but why did it make me so mad? And in doing that, I've been able to change my life dramatically.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Cole, is there anything I have not asked you that you're like, I really want to get this message out there, or something else that you want to mention?
I think it was important to touch on what you said about forgiveness, and forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of others. And it's kind of like shadow work type stuff. There's parts of myself that I used to not accept, and I was like a chameleon. I wasn't authentic. So I was putting on a show, and then people liked that version of me, but I knew that that wasn't me. And so I was like, they wouldn't like me if they knew the real me, And so integrating those pieces and forgiving myself for being the way that I was when I was younger, and, the addiction stuff. And it's not justifying or excusing it, but accepting it. And that was important in the forgiveness, so I don't hold on to guilt and shame.
Absolutely. That is so important, forgiving. Recently I read or heard someone say that, how a lot of times it's been said that when we forgive others, we're not apparently doing it for them, but we're doing it for us. But then I also heard that we're actually doing it for the other person, because we're sending good vibes of peace to that person, so they can also go into a healing journey themselves. Because again, the subconscious will keep the person trapped and somewhat connected with the negative feelings.
Okay. Yeah.
So when we release, again, we do it for ourselves, but we're also doing it for that person too.
Wow.
Subconsciously.
That's powerful.
That is an interesting concept. And I think I got that from somebody who apparently had a near-death experience, who said that when she found herself in heaven or something, she was shown that when we forgive, not just, we're not doing it for us, but also it's the benefit to the other person.
Wow. Yeah. That's the book I'm working on right now is about how the Bible and a lot of this mental health stuff overlap, and with forgiveness and like fruits of the spirit and things like that, and how do you act in accordance in some of the Proverbs with these things. It's actually in line with it's how we were designed, and this is the instruction manual. Cool.
I find the Word of God so interestingly amazing. It's one of those books that it's like you're going into a maze that never ends, because just when you read something and there's all this book that keeps on giving,
Over 2,000 years and it's still relevant, and it makes complete sense on certain things and aspects of how to live life, and that's pretty mind-blowing.
It
might not use the same terminology, but it's the same thing.
Absolutely. It is definitely one of those books. For me, it's always been the book that I've always read, like back and forth. Yeah, not in a religious way, but like a life manual, where you can definitely draw a lot of wisdom from.
Yeah. There's a lot of concepts that I find I'll be like manifesting, and then I'll read something in the Bible and it's like, pray as if it's already happened, with the faith as if it's already happened. I'm like, oh, so you mean that's manifesting with God? Okay. So like, a lot of these concepts are taken from the Bible, but remove God.
Exactly.
I'm trying to do the overlap and reconnect it.
Reconnect it, because for sure, wow, you have such a powerful story. To me, it's a reminder that, again, external circumstances, they might change in an instant, but our internal thoughts and beliefs and how we choose to respond, that is something that cannot be taken from us. So I just want to say to everyone out there listening, I do highly recommend checking. I got to check your book for sure. Internal, external, calming the chaos within. How can our listeners connect with you, Cole?
If you want to check out the book, just search Cole Grace on Amazon and it'll come up. On YouTube, it's at cgrace21. And then I'm on Instagram too. It's cgrace2180.
Perfect. You got a cool last name. I like it.
Thank you. I know, it's have grace. It reminds me constantly. And it never used to, but I use that now to remind myself, like, that's your name, man. Have some grace.
Exactly. It's beautiful. It is so beautiful. Wow, Cole. Thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability, your wisdom, your story with us today. And again, to my audience, I just want to tell you that if this conversation spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs encouragement on their healing journey. And just remember that joy doesn't come from perfection, but actually from the progress that we make every day. So until next time, everybody, this is Rosabel, and you've been listening to Rosabel Unscripted. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cole.
If this episode spoke to you, if it sparked a thought, a feeling, or a shift, I invite you to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss an episode. Visit www.rosabelzofel.com. Here on Rosabel Unscripted, we dive deep into real stories, mindful moments, and conversations that matter. Every week, we explore themes like resilience, healing, transformation, and the courage to rewrite your own story. So if you're ready to grow, reflect, and walk this journey with an open heart, hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's keep the conversation going. There are new episodes every week.